Hello, everyone. I'm Trevor.
Hi, I'm Tanner, and this is Short Final. Short Final is the game that we developed for aviation or aviation enthusiasts and general aviation pilots. We know that from the air, it's sometimes hard to tell what airports you're looking at, and so we wanted to make it, just a fun experience to try to learn what your local airports are looking like from the air. So we're able to show you a satellite view of the airports, and you've got to answer to us what's the ICAO code for that airport. Now, for those of you who aren't as big into aviation as Trevor and I are, the ICAO code is just the international prefix with your IATA code. And if that doesn't explain it enough, your local airports typically have an identifier. For example, Boston Logan is BOS, but that's only in the United States. That's its IATA code. On an international context, you need to identify what country that airport's from. And so for all airports in the US, it just gets we have the logical abbreviation of K, and so Boston Logan is KBOS. And so in our game, you'd see a picture of Logan from the air, and you'd have a bunch of options to choose from, and you'd have to say, I know that one, that's KBOS.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm going to talk more about the primary functionality of our application, which is the game component. So we actually have two variants of the game. We have the original variant of the game, which is a regional-based version of the game. So when we load this game, you will have to allow the browser to use your location, and we will use that location to find all the airports around you within a 500-kilometer radius. And the purpose of this is for people to get better at or familiarize themselves more with the inputs around them because that's probably the ones they care about the most. We also have a second version of the game, the challenge mode, which actually uses real-time statistics from our backend based on all users' guesses, and this uses the 25 most difficult airports, regardless of location, for you to guess. So if we go click play original mode, you'll see it actually takes a few seconds to load the game, and this is because for our external API that we're calling to using our location, we have to pull a new refresh token every time for their authentication system. And so just keep that in mind. So when you're playing the game, you'll notice that first you're presented with a map and four options. And this map is a top-down view of an airport without any identifying information, no labels, no city names, etc. And your task here is to guess what the ICAO code is for this airport. So if we go here and we guess, I'm actually not sure what this one is. Oh, look, we were right. So when you guess an airport, you will be presented with, you were right or you were incorrect, and then a button to go on to the next airport. You'll notice in the bottom right that there's a little, box widget that pops up. And what this does is show guesses from other users on the site, at the same time as you. So as you can see, Tanner is playing his own game, and he just guessed Albany correctly, but he guessed the rest incorrectly. He's pretty bad at this game. So the way this works is for the announcement widget, we are using a Phoenix channel socket connected to the announcements channel, and that's listening for broadcasts of all users' actions, as well as the game workflow itself is also using Phoenix channels and WebSockets on the front end to handle all game logic. So we don't send the correct answer to the front end at all. We simply provide the user with a set of four options for a given round. They guess, and then we send that back through the channel and compare their answer and so on. So when we click next airport, we will be presented with a new airport as well as four new options, four randomized options, and your job is to continue guessing. So I'll just play through the game and we'll see what happens at the end. Oh, so I know this one, PVC. That's Provincetown. Not sure about this one. Awesome. So when you finish a game, and this happens when we have less than four airports left in our list based regionally, you'll see a game over screen, and here you can either start a new round of this game, or you can go to your profile to see the stats, which is the second major part of our application.
So for statistics, and Trevor, if you wouldn't mind going to your profile, we keep track of, in our database, we keep track of all the users, of course, but we also keep track of all the guesses they've made for the airports. Now, the way we keep track of it is this was the airport that was shown. So, for example, New Bedford Regional, and then we keep track of whether or not they got that airport incorrect, correct, what have you. And so we're able to then use this as well as our database of airports that have been seen to give user statistics. So for example, we can see that in this demo account, Trevor has gotten a 33% success rate. Not particularly great, but better than you'd expect sometimes. And you can see on which airports, how he was doing for those airports. And you can click on those airports if you'd like. Don't do it yet. We'll show you later to see some more granular details. And on this over here, you have this lovely map in which you're able to see for your region pins for each airport and its name, its ICAO code, and your current win-loss percentage at that airport. But we all know that you want to compare yourself to your friends. And so if you go on over to leaderboard, you can see how you rank up. And right now, our previous demo account is best. And despite the fact that I've been playing this for probably 70 rounds or so, just over the span of testing, I'm still god awful at this game. It's way more difficult than you'd imagine to identify the airports from the air, which is what pilots would have to be doing all the time. So if you go to airport stats, Trevor, thank you very much. You can see the 25 most difficult to guess airports and the 25 most easy to guess airports as determined by their global win-loss percentage over all of our users. Now, you also have the ability, and so from here we'll say, you can click on an airport and get more granular details. So, this is Boston Logan, Edward Logan, if you didn't know. And you can see, the ICO code, your win-loss percentages, and the number of guesses that have been happening globally. Additionally, you have the ability to keep track of comments. Now, this can be used to, have a community aspect. Could be hints for how to better identify this airport in the future, just commiserating that it's very, very difficult to figure out this airport. That doesn't apply to Boston. You can see you've got a pretty good win-loss ratio there. Or, any other types of conversations that you can imagine. Now, if we go back to airport stats, you can search for airports that might not, that you might not see on the list, but you think could be there. So let's check, for example, KSFO, that's San Francisco. And I happen to know that I tested it, in San Francisco as far as the computer's concerned. And I know that's on the list. And we can see our details there. But Trevor, if you go back again one more time, let's check. Did we test it in Chicago? Let's try to go to O'Hare. And we can see that so far, no one playing our game has gone to Chicago yet. What a shame. And then we can use these top 25 hardest to introduce a new challenging mode that Trevor will tell you about.
Yeah, so earlier, I mentioned that we have two variants of this game. We have the regional version of the game, but we also have the challenge version of the game, which uses the statistics that you see here to test the user with, the 25 most difficult airports based off of the statistics. So we go to play hardest. Give it a second to load again. So same as before, you'll be presented with the map and the options, but these aren't constrained to your regional area anymore. This could be from all over. And we tested this in California, in Texas, and in the Northeast. So this will be much harder. So I actually have no idea what these are. See if I can guess them. Oh, nice. Amazing. Oh, so this is definitely, in the bay somewhere. I don't know. But yeah, so this challenge version of the game is, much more difficult than the original version of the game. I won't make you guys sit through playing another version of the game. So things that changed from, our initial proposal to now from our final implementation after going through that, we didn't actually change a whole bunch. We met our vision for what we wanted to do in our proposal, but some of the things that did change were we added comments for the airfield because, we wanted users to be able to discuss them. Some are more challenging than others. Some have identifying information, others don't, in the surrounding area. And we initially only had this 25 hardest set as a set of statistics, but we decided to make that into its own game mode because we didn't want people to ultimately only have access to the regional game mode because that would probably get boring after a while. So now we'll talk about the challenges. So one of the first challenges we ran into was actually, just last night when we were, finalizing and deploying this application to our VPS. Locally, everything was working fine. But we noticed when we were testing the registration and login workflow on the deployed version of this game, that intermittently, when we were using Google Chrome, we would run into an issue with the register and login post requests. On the front end, a CORS error was being reported where it seemed like an accept language header was automatically being added to our request to the backend. And as a result, we were getting a CORS error. It was saying, this header is not allowed. And when we went in to look at the backend, all we saw was there were no errors in the Elixir backend. There were no noticeable errors in the running service logs at all. We noticed it was actually making an options call and not a post call intermittently. So what we did to solve this was we explicitly added the accept language header to the allowed headers in the prod CORS config for CORS plug, and that seemed to resolve that issue. We also had a couple other funny issues that Tanner will talk about now.
Yeah. So one of the issues that I kind of think is a little funny is during development we had been running and getting the user's location perfectly, and at no point were we running into any errors. At least after we got it up and running. And so we deploy it through we have a CI/CD build pipeline just to make it easier for deployment. And so we go and we deploy, and we're verifying that the game is working after we verified all the logins and stuff are working, and it doesn't load. The game just never loads. Not, oh, it's taking a while to load. It never loads. And some investigation, and we see somewhere in the console, it's basically saying the game's not secure. You can't make a geolocation request. That didn't make sense. All of our requests had been working up until, just fine up until then. Well, it turns out all modern browsers that I can find require that if you're going to use the geolocation API, you need to have an SSL certificate for your application. That makes sense. However, what we didn't realize was that in development, if your browser sees that you're testing from localhost, it will just accept the geolocation API anyways, at least on the browsers that we were using to develop with. And it meant that we weren't prepared for this, when we deployed. It was a simple fix with some, certbot and messing around with the Nginx configs, but, we got that resolved pretty quickly. Once we identified it, of course. But the more insidious challenge that we had was last night, as we're going to make the first take of this video, or rather the second, I guess. We're chugging through. We get for the 3-4 minutes of intro, and we go to demonstrate the game, and again nothing happens. Well, okay, we know it's not the location problem. All right, let's see what's in the nothing's in the console. Okay, let's what are we looking on? So we SSH onto the server, look at the Elixir backend, and it's failing in our request to see what airports are in the region. Now, this had not failed in ever. It had been working since our proof of concept. In fact, this had been working, and we had not redeployed in the last half hour. Like, again, the CI/CD pipeline took care of that. We tested to make sure that everything had restarted properly, everything had rebuilt properly, and it was all working. So we test locally. It's not working locally either. Okay, so it's not just a server problem, it's a fundamental problem in the application, but we haven't changed anything. So lo and behold, after some more digging, we find out that the external API that we're using has just fallen down. All of their airline utilities from this major company, just like Southwest uses them, and it just failed. Even on their own testing page, their example API page doesn't work. 503 status errors the entire time. So I'm freaking out, pulling my hair, because this API took us a while to find, and it's the only one that had the information we required. And if we had to find a new one on such short notice, it was going to be a problem. Thankfully, we sent a couple emails to support, which not sure whether they ever read or not, but clearly they found out about the problem somehow, because within 3 or 4 hours of the problem occurring, we were back up to running. All the endpoints, were working correctly, and saved our bacon. Like I said, I wouldn't know what to do if that had been, not our problem, and if they weren't responding to us. So, those are just some of the challenges we had, and I'll let Trevor take us away.
So yeah, that's essentially the gist of our application, Short Final. We made this because we're aviation enthusiasts, and we wanted to learn more about this, and we wanted to make something that other people could use as well, that they would find useful. So if you're an aviation enthusiast and you're interested in testing your ability to identify airports, feel free to come on over to shortfinal.tmirror17.xyz and check it out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.